أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, our dear viewers. Welcome to Ahlulbayt TV, Ahlulbayt TV live every Monday, and tonight we will be discussing about the Holy Month of Ramadan, which is just around 3 weeks away from us, how we are supposed to be preparing ourselves for this holy month. And to discuss this very intense and interesting topic, I have been joined by Haji Maqbul. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Haji, before we get into the whole discussion about the holy month of Ramadan and how exactly we should prepare ourselves, before I get to the topic of Ramadan, we have the 15th of Shaban coming up, which is I was discussing yesterday with Sayyid Muhammad Musa, and he said after Laylatul Qadr, the 15th of Shaban is one of the precious nights. If you could shed some light on that, and then we will proceed towards the holy month of Ramadan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Indeed, if you look at the whole silsila of the holy months, which begins with the holy month of Rajab, which we find is dominated by two major events. Firstly, it is Laylatul Raghaib, the first Thursday night, where we have an intensive night of prayers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's absolutely amazing. The importance of that particular prayer is that it will come in your own grave and it will give you company on the first night of Wahshat. So you see that it is something that gives you great consolation, it gives you great purity, it makes you feel very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all this, essentially the 3 nights, the holy months, the night of Laylatul Raghaib, and then the second event in the holy month of Rajab is, of course, the 13th of Rajab, which is the wiladat of our Imam Ali alayhi salam. So we find that we are blessed with these blissful events. And we are moving from there to Shaban, which starts off with the wiladat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, and Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. So we have a continuation of blessings that we get from the remembrance of these great personalities, these very lofty personalities that are wajihun indallah. They are the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they are the ones who are exemplars. They are the ones through whom we get shafa'at. They are the ones through whom we get inspiration. And they are the ones from which we get hidayat. And we model our lives according to the lives of our blessed Imams. Right. Then we have the 15th of Shaban, which is the wiladat of our living Imam, Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajah Sharif. And it's absolutely amazing because that's the night when we seek to develop a very keen and close connection with our Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajah Sharif. See, we, Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam, as per the injunction of the Holy Prophet alayhi salam, that you hold on to 2 things which is after me, and you'll never get astray. First is Quran, Kitab Allah, wa itrati Ahlulbayt, and my Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam. So we have our salvation, our success, our prosperity. Right. Our najah is in holding on to the 2. So you find that what we are seeking to do throughout is to develop a connection with our Imams, develop a connection with Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And this connection is this is a connection of the heart. It is a connection in which we feel in our heart that we are close to them. In the same way as you feel in your own heart when you are close to the baby, your own baby, right, your own child, your own mother, your own father, that closeness of the heart, which doesn't need rationalization, which doesn't need any thinking, which doesn't need any inspiration of any sort, is simply the heart-to-heart connection. That is the objective that we have of holding on to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And this is a similar connection with the Holy Quran, the heart-to-heart connection. So when we come to the wiladat of our living Imam, Imam Zamana alayhi salam, what we need to do is to think how much part of our life he is. How much part of our life we have made him. How much in our thoughts, in our mind, in our heart does he feature? To what extent does he feature in our life? To what extent we think about him? And that's why we have been told to do many things. The first thing is whenever you talk about Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraj Sharif, you have to put your hand on the head and recite, that you recite the salawat. Secondly, that you recite Dua Faraj, where you pray for his well-being and his reappearance. You recite Dua Ahad, where you are giving your bayah to him every day. Every day in the morning when you recite your Subh namaz, and you're reciting Dua Ahad, and you're saying, I'm pledging my allegiance to you, and I want to be with you, and I want to be your close companions, and if for any reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes me away from this world, and I'm no longer alive, I want to come back from my grave, in my coffin, with my sword, to be with you and to be your companion.
It's quite interesting, when you said, when you highlighted the way the build-up towards Ramadan is, and the fact that the Prophet said, that if you hold on to the Quran and the Ahlulbayt, and it's quite amazing to see that the month of Rajab and Shaban are so much related to the Ahlulbayt, that you have, as you said, the 13th of Rajab, you have the night of Miraj, of course, and then you have the birth of 4 holy personalities in Shaban, and then the whole of Ramadan emphasizes on the Quran. Is there a particular relationship between these 3 months? Or are these 2 months sent down in order for us to prepare ourselves for Ramadan, or is it just a coincidence, or is it just a theory kind of thing that we need to work upon in order to get towards Ramadan?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his greatest wisdom and his knowledge, he has set up things in a certain way for us to facilitate us. And no doubt, the way in which we get the concurrence of and the consequence, the sequentialization of the holy months, which starts with Rajab, and then Shaban, and then Ramadan, and then Zilqad, Zilhajj. So you can see that we are seeking, and then Muharram. So we are seeking all the time to be to connect. And we have so many avenues of connection. We connect to our living Imam, Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraj Sharif. In 15th Shaban, we write an ariza to him. That act of writing an ariza, in which we are writing a letter to him, is symbolizing the fact that he is there with us, and that we need to be very much more conscious of him. And so throughout our lives, in Namaz al-Jumu'ah we recite, after Namaz al-Jumu'ah we recite ziyarat of our 12th Imam. That is the kind of connections that we are building up. And then thereafter, when you come to the month of Ramadan, we are seeking a total, all-out, concentrated, focused attention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the month in which we are seeking to develop something that we lack in the rest of the months. You see, one of the things that you can look at is that if there is a disconnect between your life outside this sacred months and the sacred months itself, if there's a disconnect, if there is a pattern to one's life in which one is leading a life which is A, robotic, B, it is routinized, C, it is looking all the time of material things like how do I progress myself in a worldly connection, in terms of my job, in terms of my life that I lead, in terms of my possessions, in terms of what I need to do in my life. All these things are very important things in life because you have to lead a life. But they do tend to engross you. And our religion is telling us that we should have a balance. We should develop a balance between the material and the spiritual, so much so that we do not get distracted We don't get distracted. We utilize our material possessions.
Yeah.
We have a fantastic cars, but you don't get distracted by them, nor do we get allured by them, Alhaakumut takassur. We don't get overwhelmed by plentifulness. We seek to develop that balance. And therefore, we find that in the month of Ramadan, we are seeking something which is different from our rest of the life. If we have not been praying in time, on time, in the rest of the days, we are delaying, we are not as careful about being conscious of Allah's presence or about those activities or actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like, then this is the time for rehabilitation. This is the time for, so to speak, to get reoriented to the spiritual world, to come to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the manner in which He should be remembered. Right. And in that respect, Ramadan, the month of Ramadan is so opportune because it's a beautiful opportunity to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's a very interesting thing. There's a few things that I will ask you to shed some light of what you said there, but just a kind reminder to our dear viewers that you can partake in this discussion by calling in live at the numbers that will appear at the bottom of your screen, or you can even tweet us at Ahlulbayt TV or at MJ Kassam. Write us on our Facebook page at Ahlulbayt TV. Tell us what you feel about the month of Ramadan, how you are going to prepare yourselves. Do you have any challenges to prepare yourselves towards the month of Ramadan? We will get back to the discussion. You said the month of Ramadan is plentiful of blessings. It is filled with a lot of blessings, and quite often, since I grew up, when I was growing up, Ramadan was taught to us all about being the Quran. It was all about make sure you take a lot of time to recite the Quran and ponder over it. Is Ramadan only the Quran?
I think it's a very, very important question. In fact, there are three things which symbolize Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, to most of us. The first and foremost thing that symbolizes the month of Ramadan, that it is called Laylatul Qadr, the night when the whole Quran was revealed upon the heart of the Holy Prophet. So Quran, the revelation of Quran is very, very important. It's a very great significance, and it's one of the pillars of the month. And therefore, recitation of the holy month of the Holy Quran, to reciting it, contemplating it, studying it. We have to look at it this way, that an average person, say, who is about 40 years old or 45 years old, would have had 25 years outside his teen years,
right.
Where he would say to himself, I am now mature, I've gone through 25 months of the holy month of Ramadan, and what have I achieved in these 25 months? 25 years, the 25 occasions. Right. Have I managed to do anything to it? Did I manage to study Quran to such an extent that now I think I understand Quran? Did I read the Quran? Have I looked at the tafsir of Quran, tafasir of Quran, and have I tried to understand the Quran, the eloquence of Quran, the patterns, the rhythmatic patterns of Quran? Have I tried to understand what is the Quran trying to tell me? How can I utilize it as a guidance book? You see, most people who go to university would have gone through a textbook that they have to study and give exams on, and really master it. And many people have had to do this. We have been given one textbook, which is the Holy Quran. And this textbook we have been given with ample opportunity, year after year after year. In our community, which is blessed community, and our forefathers are blessed that they thought that this is such an important thing, that they should have halakha, which is darsa, the round, the circle of reciters of Quran, where people as a community come together to recite the Holy Quran together in a circle, where one person is listening to the Quran and the other persons are going, and they finish the entire Quran in 30 days. And alhamdulillah, this is something that has been happening in East Africa from the time our forefathers came from India to Zanzibar and then East Africa, and then has been brought here. And so in every community, we have this Quran Khani, we call it,
Yeah.
or recitation of the Holy Quran, where the young and the old, they sit together and they recite without any hesitation. Those who don't know how to recite begin to realize that, look, I should really now brush up on my Quran, and this is the way in which you actually are encouraged. Those who don't know, start reciting, because they'll start learning how to recite Quran.
There is something I would like to ask you on a personal opinion. Would you rather have people recite the Quran every day in Ramadan and finish the whole Quran without the tafsir? Or would you rather have a whole darsa, a whole madrasa, a group of students recite one particular chapter or one particular surah or 5 particular verses, understand what the verse is trying to tell them, and act upon them?
I think it's a very, very good question. My own personal view is this, that we should do both. I think we should certainly finish the Holy Quran,
right,
because it doesn't take long. If you have about 30 people who are in a circle, they will recite the Holy Quran in an hour's time. That is not a problem.
Yeah.
In fact, there may be some gulliting of how much you can recite, because there are too many people reciting. So you don't even get a whole makra to recite, but not even a page. But that is something that's, why? Because there is barakah in reciting the Holy Quran in the language in which it was revealed.
No doubt about it.
There is barakah, and also it is a reminder to us that we should strive to learn Arabic. It is a reminder to us, in the same way as we have been told to recite our salah in Arabic. No one has ever said that you should recite your salah
in English,
in anything but Arabic. And it is something that motivates you to understand what you are reciting. And therefore, but what I also feel is that it's also very important to understand what the meaning of the Quran is and the tafsir of the Quran. And therefore, what we try to do in our communities is the tafsir of the Quran, the themes from the Quran are being treated and explained in the lectures. But of course, if there is a possibility of actually having a tafsir of Quran, of Quran in a systematic manner, I think that will be very welcome. In fact, 15 minutes of tafsir of Quran before one actually goes into lecture.
Yeah, because I would, on a personal view, on a personal opinion, I would rather have, half an hour of contemplation on the Quran rather than reciting the Quran and knowing what you're reciting. I mean, of course, quoting the famous saying of the Prophet that 1 hour, of contemplation is better than 1,000 hours of worship, something like that. But as you said, okay, so we have discussed about the Quran and how important it is for the month of Ramadan, and that it has been revealed during the month and how we should look into it. What other aspect do you think that Ramadan has?
So our Holy Prophet alayhi salam has also emphasized that the Quran is to be recited. This is the month of Quran,
right,
is to be recited. So the other aspects which are very important to me is the dua. Okay. You see, the connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the dua. For example, we have dua iftitah, which is so beautiful dua, in which we spend a lot of time praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reminding ourselves of the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His various powers and attributes and majesty, and gloriousness, and then connecting to Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam, reciting about the Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam, giving salawat on the Holy Prophet and our Aimmas, and then going on to talk about our Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu ta'ala Faraj Sharif, and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring close the day when he reappear, come out from his ghaibah to come back with us, and to establish the kingdom of Allah based on justice, love, and harmony on this earth. So that is a beautiful thing. And you have this dua. We have the dua iftitah, which we recite. We have various dua makarimul akhlaq, which tells us about the various ways in which we should polish our behavior. There is the daily dua, Ya Ali Azim, that we recite, which is beautiful after every salah. And then Allahumma adkhil ala al-quburi surur, where we pray for others. And we are reminding ourselves of the misfortunes and the difficulties and the afflictions that other people have. And we try to pray for them and say, okay, may Allah give them relief. of course, that is a way of reminding ourselves that these are in difficulties and this we have to pray, but do also something else in order to relieve them. And then the third aspect, which is very important, is fasting. To me, in the month of Ramadan, the fast itself, if you have these three things, the fasting, the Quran recitation, and the dua. You see, when we truly fast, the way our Imams, our Holy Prophet, the Holy Quran tells us, we have to fast not only with our stomach, but we have to fast with every part of our body.
Right.
So it is an act of self-discipline. It is an act in which great determination is taken. The most of the people, if they, especially now, I mean, we are going to start Ramadan, the month of Ramadan in 21 days' time, inshallah. And the first day when the fast will end at 9:33. and that is a long fast.
Yeah.
If you take 2:12 to be the start, around 2:12 to 2:15 to be the start of the fast, and then go on till about 9:33. Of course, it diminishes, it reduces as we go along.
Yeah.
The last day is 9 o'clock, 9:03.
Wow.
So, we're really going backwards.
Yeah.
So we are getting more or less, the fasts are decreasing in length. But if you consider the fact that most people, when they think in terms of the month of Ramadan, they are saying that, oh my God, it's a long fast. I don't know whether I can do it. You know why people think that? Because they, in their mind, they have a worldview of what they need to do in the day, like in their life. What they need to do is to go to work. They must have breakfast and go to work, right? They go to work, they must be able to work along a certain number of period, like 8 hours, whatever, 9 hours, and then come back. They give the importance to that. Now, when you get something like fasting, which is a huge shock to your system, your physical and bodily system, and also to your routine. Because here now, you're saying, okay, this is not the end of the matter. My life is not about my work. Otherwise, how can I explain my grave?
Very true.
If my life was everything about my work and career and my family and everything to do with the world, then how do I explain what happens at the end of it? Everything vanishes. I go in my grave. So I have to make sense of it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to remind ourselves that, look, this life is not about this work only. You have to develop a relationship with Allah who is going to be with you. Your only companion in your qabr is going to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, how to develop this relationship? So you have to change the focus. So a person has to say, oh, my work is not the most important thing.
Fasting.
My Allah is the most important thing. For it is because of my Allah I have life, and I have the ability to do work, and I have the strength to do work, and I have the mind to do work, and the intelligence, and the facilities, and the opportunities to do work, and the time to do work. It is because, so my Allah is very important, and I must connect to Allah. And fasting, the month of Ramadan, is all about connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There is one point that you've mentioned, that fasting is a shock to the body. So does that mean that the month of Rajab and Shaban should be used to get your body used towards the Ramadan system? Is that what
we have been recommended that
fast?
We should connect the month end of Shaban and the beginning of Ramadan. We should connect the month of Ramadan. So we should connect. We should fast on the 15th of Shaban.
So are you saying we should start fasting from Saturday all the way to...
I would say not all the way, but I would say at least 15th of Shaban we must fast. As much of Shaban as you can fast. We have been told to fast on Mi'raj, 27th. Right. We have been asked to fast on Ba'asat, that is the same. We have been asked to fast on 13th of Rajab. In fact, the middle of Rajab, 12th, 13th, 14th of Rajab, we have been asked to fast.
So there's a whole series basically.
Exactly.
Right, yeah. There is one aspect of Ramadan that I would want us to look into, but we'll be going on a short break in 2 minutes. The aspect of food. I know it sounds a bit strange to speak about the concept of food, but as you said, fasting is not only about your stomach; it's also about the food. But there is one of the things that I was taught when I was in madrasa was that when you are fasting, you need to remember what people who are less fortunate than you, what they do think about it, and how they go through their lives and everything. And of course, there's certain foods that have been described in the Holy Quran that are recommended to eat during the year, and foods that are prohibited to eat. What we will discuss that when we come back from the break. And also, I want us to discuss how do we now prepare ourselves. The fact that we are only 17, 18 days away from the Holy Month, how do we get about that? We'll be going on a short break, dear viewers, and a kind request and a reminder that if you wish to partake in this, in this discussion, please do call us on our numbers, which will appear at the bottom of your screen, or you can tweet us your thoughts at Ahlulbayt TV at MJ Kassam, or post it on our Facebook page at Ahlulbayt TV, and we will read them out here. We are now going on a short break, and we will see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome back to Ahlulbayt TV live every Mondays. And on tonight's program I've been joined by Haji Maqbul, and we will be discussing about the month of Ramadan, how to prepare ourselves for the month of Ramadan, how to embrace the month of Ramadan, how do we conduct ourselves during the holy month in all aspects of life. Haji, before we went to break and we discussed about the aspects of Ramadan, where you said it's, of course, the Quran is there, the du'as is there, the fasting is there, and then of course comes the concept of food, the food aspect. As a norm, or the way I've grown up, we always used to eat as much as we could at iftar and during our sahri, or the daku that's called in East Africa, so that you don't starve the next day, basically, so that your fast is so smooth that you don't even realize you're fasting. However, as we grow up and we realize that perhaps this is not the right thing to do, because fasting is all about getting closer to Allah, as you said, and of course also about knowing how people who are less fortunate feel about it. Is there any set of, not particular rules, but set of things that we could maybe adapt towards in Ramadan, our eating habits, what we eat, because it is said you are what you eat, of course. So are there any foods that should be avoided during Ramadan, or things that should be done in Ramadan in regards to the food, and whether that has an effect to your spirituality in this holy month?
Yeah, I think one thing that's very important is it is clearly indicated that the one who fasts should not be extravagant in consuming food during Sahri and Iftar. Should not be extravagant. So that this concept that I want to eat as much as I can in order that I do not feel deprivation of food the next day, is something that is erroneous. Firstly, you could be eating a lot of fatty foods which are very unhealthy.
Right.
You could be eating foods which are, highly, rich in various kinds of, this highly cholesterolized food, high cholesterol and all that. And you really want, in the month of Ramadan, you don't want to be distracted by anything, including food. So, the idea is we should be able to eat our normal food without going for extravagance, and have a balance between what we are eating. Right. For example, it is highly recommended to eat fruits, for iftar. Fruits are very good. Dates are very good. Hot water and dates is what you start your fast with. You break your fast with. So this concept of really eating enormous food is not something that would be encouraged. I think what we need to do is, because this is something that is indicated in our childhood by our parents have to become much more liberalized from these kinds of thinking. Right. And to really to try to teach the children that, look, our fast and everyone's fast is not only food. Food is a very important part of it. And it is because of the deprivation of food that your mind becomes focused and your soul becomes focused. Your mind and soul will not be focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you have a full stomach. It will only be focused if you are hungry. That is why we find that those people, and it's recommended not to eat very much in Sahri either. You eat something in Sahri, but not too much. Because what will otherwise happen is you will start feeling in the morning the fact that you've eaten, and you will not be feeling the consequence of fasting, the effect of fasting on your body. It is stated that in modern medicine, in ancient medicine, the miraculous effect of abstaining from food in curing various diseases is kind of known. We know that there is a Russian scientist who is called Alexis Soporifin, yeah. He is a Russian scientist, and he writes in his book, Soporin, he writes in his book that treatment by means of fasting possesses special benefits and is useful for curing anemia, weakness of the intestines, acute and chronic inflammation, internal and external abscesses, tuberculosis, sclerosis, rheumatism, gout, dropsy, and various other diseases of the eye, sugar disorders, skin disorders, kidney and liver problems, and other diseases. So he has actually studied, and there is now a therapy which is called fasting therapy, which in fact is seeking to treat people by fasting. So we see that there is a physical effect of deprivation of food and drink on the body. The body can withstand no food and no drink for more than a couple of days.
Wow. So
you don't need to eat to live. If you did not break your fast on the first day, supposing you broke your fast with dates and water and nothing else, and you did your sahri with dates and water the next day, you still will be quite strong. It will take a number of days before before the effect of this particular diet will be felt by your body. So the idea that I must replace whatever I lost is totally erroneous, and it goes against the grain. It goes against the spirit of fasting. Fasting is supposed to make us understand what poor people go through, what the hungry go through, what the thirsty go through, how people are starving, how they're only living on one meal a day or half a meal a day. And we have to develop half a meal a day attitude as well in order to understand. Sometimes I would say that you should deliberately go for half an iftar and not rich. Very simple iftar, a couple of fruits, some milk, a fruit or two, some milk, some dates, and maybe some bread with something. And you just go ahead and say, okay, this is my iftar, nothing more to do.
That would be a real test of character for myself. I won't lie to you. But yes, a very interesting thing there. It's a very interesting point, the fact that when you look into history, when you look at what Iran did when they were sanctioned, they all went into fasting, and that enabled the whole country to survive. So basically, if every human being during Ramadan tried to consume, as much as they can, avoid, doing asraf or extravaging, then perhaps we could combat hunger in the world.
Definitely. I think, and now environmentalists are talking about this, the green lobby is talking about this. There is so much food that is done asraf and dumped. Food that could otherwise be eaten is thrown, is binned and thrown. And it's totally, wasted. And there are millions and millions of people who don't have any food. So there's such gross injustice in distribution of food, even if you take food and drink. If people were to forego one bottle of milk, so say one bottle less, one fruit less, one piece of meat less, one kind of plate full of rice less, just everything, cut it. In fact, it is it is a hadith of Imam Ali alayhi salam that you should not leave the table until you cannot eat
Stand
no
up.
more.
Yeah.
And what you should be doing is you should stop eating when you still feel like eating, which means that you still have capacity in your stomach to eat.
Right.
And you should give up. At that time, you say, okay, I'm now on a half stomach diet, which means I will only eat enough to satisfy my hunger, plus satisfy some pleasure. But the moment I seek that I've now reached a kind of equilibrium, then I give up. I say, now I'm on a half stomach diet, because that is what Imam Ali alayhi salam has recommended that we should do. And therefore, our iftar should be like half stomach iftar. You should get up before you feel. You see, the problem with iftar is because people have not eaten for the whole day. And they see all the beautiful things that they see there. They just want to, the soul is saying, I want to eat that, I want to eat that, I want to eat that. Have you noticed when you are doing iftar in the line of people, and what is given, the first thing that you distribute before the main food comes, you have got some snacks that you are distributing. Those snacks are very valuable because people haven't eaten. But if you distribute those snacks at the end,
people don't consume it.
People say, oh,
we have eaten now.
We have eaten now.
Very true.
So it's a kind of feeling of wanting to eat more, which is really something unnecessary.
Very, very interesting point, and I would say it's perhaps one of the things that we as Muslims need to build on in the world that we live in today, given the fact that a lot of our Muslims and non-Muslim brothers are suffering from hunger, from poverty. Perhaps this Ramadan could be the month to make a change, to be the difference in the world. Of course, we've discussed all the aspects about Ramadan, and however, the key thing here, I think, is how do we prepare ourselves for this holy month? Every time, I think it's left a bit too late. Every time it's already Ramadan, and that's when we wake up and say, oh, now it's Ramadan, now what do we do? Apart from the things that we usually do before Ramadan is to stock up on our food, items, and make sure the mosque is ready, the speakers are ready, the Quran khanes are ready, as you said, the darsas are ready. But on an individual level, how do I convince myself, my soul, my psychologically, how do I tell myself this is Ramadan, this is the month where I now need to get closer to my God, whom I've forgotten for the last 11 months? I'm pretty sure that, the Ahlulbayt have given a few traditions about it. If you could shed some light on that, please.
Yeah, I think certainly we have many traditions from Ahlulbayt alayhi salam on what to do. For example, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, our sixth Imam, has said that your fast day should not be like your ordinary days. So when you fast, all your senses should fast. Your eyes, your ears, your tongue, your hands and your feet must fast with you. So the eyes, you keep your eyes off all those things which are unlawful. And you spend this gift which Allah has given you of sight in acquiring knowledge, reciting Quran, acquiring knowledge, acquiring in understanding. Right. So, getting ilm, and also reading Quran in du'as. This is what our sixth Imam has. Then the ears. Abstain from anything that's unlawful and gossip and things which are not allowed, and music and other things, and pay attention to the sermons and those things that are useful to you, which are going to be useful in the hereafter. Then your tongue, don't tell lies, don't talk things which are going to be hurtful to others. So like your tongue, your hand, your feet. So if you don't want Ramadan to come sliding into us without us being prepared, we should have by now fasted quite a few days in Rajab. We should fast a few days in Shaban, and we should connect the end of Shaban and the beginning of Ramadan, and not worry about whether the moon is sighted or not, but simply connect, so that, if you connect it and you say the last 2 nights or three days of Shaban, which is going to be connected with the first day of Ramadan, if everyone did that, You really, really, would feel the benefit of that. Also, so your body started now fasting. Your body started understanding. You should start doing things which are going to make you closer to Allah. So, for example, if you haven't been reading Quran, you should read Quran and the meaning and the tafsir, all the three. Then you should ask yourself, go through introspection. And this is very important. Just like when you do MOT of a car, you want to know all the weaknesses of the car and all the strengths. It is no good if you take a car to MOT and the guy is being very good to you and he ticks everything off, but then the next day you find that your car has stopped because there's something is wrong. So what you want to do is to ensure that all your weaknesses are accurately identified. So you've got to identify your weaknesses. For example, if a person finds it difficult to pray on time, he has to ask himself, why is this weakness? If he's giving priority to other things than to salah, then he has to. If he is habituated to looking at haram things, for example, pornographic things or revealing things, or if he is not able, when he goes commuting in the trains, to keep his eyes off from those revealing figures of people around him, especially in summer, when you got to start telling, lower your eyes, lower your gaze. You have to put yourself in the Ramadan fasting mode and say, okay, if this was the month of Ramadan, I was fasting, what would I do? I will, in every respect, in what I talk, what I hear, how I spend my time, how do I carry out my activities, how do I relate to fellow human beings? Do I help people? Do I feel like helping someone who's poor? Do I feel like sharing food with others? Do I feel like being good to others? Developing a good relationship with relatives and family members, ensuring their sila rahmah, which means you talk to you keep contact with your family members, ensuring that you keep the rights of the family members, don't get angry, don't quarrel, don't use your tongue, don't get irritated. Develop a total control on your mind and your body and your soul. In other words, go into a yoga mode where you are in control, you are in charge. You don't get angry. Someone irritates you, you feel the irritation, but you have controlled it. You've got to go into that. That's the kind of a development phase that you have to go through, in which you have to see exactly how prepared am I to do a single day of fast, in which my Imam Zamana Ajala Ta'ala Farajah will be happy with me, or my Prophet, my Holy Prophet will be happy with me, and my Allah will be happy with me that I did the haqq. I fulfill the haqq of that fast. So in that respect, I need to, when you take a person playing sports or doing Olympics or training for Olympics, he goes through a rigorous testing and he goes through various training sessions. So before the month of Ramadan, we have to start training. We've got 3 weeks, inshallah. And during the 3 weeks, every day we have to train. We have to train in every respect. Less food. Control your desires. You feel like eating something, don't eat that. Tell yourself, because my nafs is telling me eat, I won't eat. I control my mind, I control my soul, I control myself so much so that I do not do. I think of Allah and the Holy Prophet and my Imam before I do anything. Tick them off. Will my Allah like it? Will my Holy Prophet like it? Will my Imam like it? If it is no, you don't do it. So you have to go through this. This is the kind of preparation. And inshallah, if you develop this, I think particularly if one can identify one's weaknesses, honestly, and say, okay, tell me, what are my weaknesses? Tell your soul, what are my weaknesses? Why is it that then someone tells me that I gave 20 pounds, I feel stingy, I feel miserable, I feel misery. Is it because I'm not generous? Is it that I don't have feeling for others? Then develop the feelings. Give. Be generous. Give in charity. Give my money away in charity. Give some of it away so that I can develop the spirit of giving others.
We have around 5 minutes before we, of course, go for a second break. But all this that you said is a spiritual and psychological way of preparing yourself. Are there any other ways? Of course, physically, one has to be able to fast, of course, I mean, your health counts as well. Is there any other aspects you think, apart from, of course, the psychological way, any other aspect that we need to prepare ourselves with?
We know that fasting is wajib.
Yeah.
We know that it is such an important ibadah. It's part of Furu'id. We know that it has got untold benefits. It has got immense benefits. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives our sins. He gives us blessings. We get good health. We get all kinds of blessings. We get rizq. We get long life. All that through fasting and through ibadah. Fasting, one aspect of fasting, which is a physical one, you can prepare for by eating less.
Yeah.
So you just eat less. But the majority of your fasting activity is to do with your mind and your psyche. Because if someone is able to control his food consumption and his drink consumption to such an extent that he can fast by not eating between the hours and not drinking, and doesn't do any of the other things, doesn't control his mind, doesn't control his heart, doesn't control his nerves, and keeps on doing everything that he used to do before, then that's not a fast. So the physical aspect of fasting is only a very small fraction.
Yeah.
It is a very important fraction because it is the one that brings the conditions for, because of the fasting, because midday at about Zohar Asr time, you will find that when you have not eaten and there is no food in your stomach, you will enjoy recitation of the Quran. You will enjoy the prayers. I have always enjoyed in Dar es Salaam my Salatul Jama'at in the month of Ramadan, going to the mosque and putting my legs in the house with water in it, doing wuzu there, then going to pray, and then praying that namaz. It has given me untold sweetness. Why? Because I was fasting. Because there was nothing in my stomach.
When we look at the physical aspect, of course, quite a lot of times in a lot of communities, we do have sports activities throughout the holy month. Of course, some of them are aimed at creating unity or, bringing people together. What would be your take on that? Is it advisable to have sports throughout the holy month? Of course, we do have the Quran and everything which is done throughout the day. What's your take on the sports aspect?
My own personal view is this, that everything has to be done in moderation. Right. And therefore, I would be totally against a sports activity which takes you away from the dua, which takes you away from Quran recitation, which takes you away from majlis or the lecture. But after the lecture, if there is an hour or two to be spent in meeting together, in playing some sports, in coming to interact with each other, in developing relationships and developing bonds between Mu'minin brothers, it would be very much something that I would look forward to. I would actually look forward to doing some as part, but it would not be at the expense of Salatul Layl.
Of course.
It will not be at the expense of anything. It will have to be in addition
to that. That's a very important thing that you said. We'll now be going on a short break, but after, once we return from the break, we'll be discussing about the night of Qadr and how we need to prepare ourselves and the significance of these holy nights. Dear viewers, we'll now be going on a short break, as I said, but when we return, please do give us a call. Let us know what you think about the holy month. I'll see you after the short break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. And welcome back, dear viewers, on the final segment of our show tonight, Ahlulbayt TV Live, where we will be discussing about the concept of Ramadan, how to prepare for the holy month, how to act during the holy month, and the significance of the holy nights that have been included in this holy month. I've been joined by Haji Maqbul today, and Haji, thank you very much for the last two episodes that you've been looking into it. Of course, very interesting things that you have cited. And for the final segment, we will be discussing more to do with the night of Qadr and how we can prepare ourselves. And the fact that it is quite often said that the night of Qadr is a night of destiny, but it is still not yet this, it is not concrete what night is the night of Qadr? Is it the 19th, the 21st, the 23rd, or in some traditions the 27th? So if you could look into of course what you would perceive as the night of Qadr is for you, and discuss the significance of it, and then we could look into it.
One of the things that I have come across is a narration that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hidden certain things in other things. Like He has hidden His Ismul Azam in all the names. And He has hidden the Laylatul Qadr in the last 10 nights, according to some tradition, or in the month of Ramadan. So you see that the reason why this has been hidden is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to develop the same affinity for each and every night of the month of Ramadan as we would have for Laylatul Qadr. Because the other thing, for example, the narration says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hidden the date of the time when we will die, or the date of our death. He has hidden it because He wants us to be ever ready and prepared in all the good deeds that we are ready for accounting. So, for Laylatul Qadr, the approach of a person who is fasting is that each and every night he's moving towards greater and greater closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As he disciplines his mind, his soul, and his body, as he goes through the exercises, the spiritual exercises that he goes throughout the day, his prayers, his du'as, his supplications to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his control over all his limbs, which is such an important thing and such a difficult thing, especially in environments where, there is everything liberalized and allowed.
Yeah.
So you find, for example, the typical tube journey could in fact be quite a difficult one for someone to control. He has to be absolutely certain that not only his eyes are lowered, but his heart doesn't wish to see something. In other words, he has controlled his heart from wanting to see something and wanting to enjoy the sight.
Right.
That is itself, control over your heart, your own nafs. So all that becomes, it becomes very difficult.
Right.
But as you go through this, and as you're coming closer and closer, there is a night of destiny. There is a night when when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He revealed the Holy Quran. And, we say this in one of the du'as. And you say, for example, we say it in وَجَعَلْتَ فِيهِ لَيْلَةَ الْقَدْرِ. وَجَعَلْتَ فِيهِ لَيْلَةَ الْقَدْرِ. And he made in the night Laylatul Qadr. Now there is one night, there's a climax. There is uruj. There is the peak of spirituality that you can tap into, that you can actually imbibe.
Right.
And that peak of spirituality is going to be the night of power, the night when تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. This will be the time when the ruh, malaika and the ruh, they come down to Sahib al-Amr and bring, the umur to him.
Right.
For all our actions pass through our Imam Zaman Ajala Ta'ala Faraj Sharif. On the night of Qadr, that's the night of destiny. That's the night when our du'as, exactly what is the spiritual elevation that I have been able to achieve in the month of Ramadan before the 19th. Because according to the common narrations, 19th, 21st, and 23rd, with a possibility of 27th.
Yeah.
So what I have been able to achieve in the earlier fasts, I'm seeing, I have to kind of feel it. Every night, you have to feel, in the month of Ramadan, you have to feel, have I achieved spirituality more than last night? Do I feel different? Or do I feel the same? Do I feel closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I feel closer to my Holy Prophet and my Imam?
Right.
You've got to keep on asking yourself. Because on that night of Qadr, that's the night when you want to be totally prepared. You want to be you have to create the ideal conditions for heightening your spirituality, for accentuating your spirituality to such an extent that you are ready for spiritual elevation. On the night, you should be so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you feel an inner connection. When you hear Joshan Kabir, when you hear the dua of Joshan Kabir, your heart is resonating with the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanaka ya la ilaha illa anta al-ghaus al-ghaus khalisna min an-nar ya Rab. You feel you are with Allah. You feel your heart you have left your body. Your spirit has been elevated. That degree of spiritual ascension, that is what we are seeking. That's the empowerment we are seeking. So, if we don't, on the night of Amal, feel that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we have done something wrong. Then we have wasted 18 days of the holy month of Ramadan. What did we do wrong? You've got to keep an eye. This is a state of preparation. You don't want to come on the 18th day and 19th day you find, I don't feel different. I feel the same. I don't feel close to Allah. I don't feel that I can ask Allah and He'll be granting me. I don't feel anything towards my Imam Zamana. I don't feel affinity. I just feel dead. I feel numb. I'm spiritually numb. What's wrong?
It's quite interesting, that the fact that you've pointed out the number 18. That shows that how well Allah has planned the nights of Qadr, that He didn't actually place it in the first week of Ramadan. He didn't place it in between Ramadan. He placed it during a time that, such a time frame, that builds you towards that particular, psychologically. And the other fact is that during the build-up towards, Laylatul Qadr 1921st, you come across two other holy personalities. Again, you come across Bibi Khadija, her generosity, as you pointed out. You have to be generous during the holy month. And then you come towards Imam Hassan, who, which is quite unfortunate that a lot of people don't cite how important he was to Islam and the things that he did for Islam and how wise he was. So it is so miraculous, the fact that your build up towards Ramadan is within the borders and the guidelines of these holy personalities. And
absolutely. We have Bibi Khadija alayhi salam, the Muhsina of Islam, the one who provided the Holy Prophet with all the help with the mission, so much so that all her wealth, her life, everything that she possessed, she gave away to the Holy Prophet for the sake of Islam. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, who, as the Imam, saved Islam. He saved Islam in such difficult circumstances, in such dire circumstances, that Islam was going to be totally defeated. But he was there. He did exactly what Imam Ali alayhi salam did when he did not fight for his right, but he wanted to protect the baby, which was Islam. So you have Imam Hassan alayhi salam and then Imam Ali alayhi salam.
And that's what I was coming to. I haven't personally read into this, but the 19th and 21st are considered, of course, part of Laylatul Qadr. However, a lot of significance is given to the 23rd night, for reasons that I don't know if you could shed some light into that. But before we get there, if you look at its generosity, it's Bibi Khadija. She was a fundamental part of Islam, and she was, of course, the wife of the Prophet. You come down to Imam Hassan, who was, of course, fundamental to Islam, and the grandson of the Holy Prophet. And then you come to Imam Ali. It is quite often said that if it wasn't for the sword of Imam Ali and the wealth of Khadija, Islam wouldn't have been there. So the whole of Islam, the whole of, the role models that have been set throughout the month go through such a nice segment of 19 and 21st. But why is it that a lot of emphasis on the 23rd night? But what is also interesting to see is on the 23rd night, the supplications that are recited, a lot of scholars cite the way the Imam Ali would have recited these supplications. So is there a particular reason why 23rd night has been given more significance than the 90th on the 21st?
It's to do with which is the night of Qadr.
Right.
There is one night of Qadr. It is not more than one night.
Okay.
So which one is it? Is it 19th? Is it 21st? Is it 23rd? Is it 27th? there's a lot of narration that goes for 23rd.
Okay.
So, you find that even in the dua that you recite is a reference of that particular day. The duas of the day is talking about Laylatul Qadr.
Okay, the 23rd.
The night of the 23rd.
Yeah.
It's talking about Laylatul Qadr. So you find that the way to explain is this, that on the 19th, we take the view that this could be Laylatul Qadr, but most likely it's not. It could be, it's not. So we say, okay, we did the amal of Laylatul Qadr because we are in a sense preparing ourselves for the actual Laylatul Qadr, for the grand night. We're going to do amal, we're going to seek that connection with Allah and see when can we and how we are going to be able to connect with Allah. So and also the 19th night is a night where a great tragic event took place, and that is the striking of Imam Ali alayhi salam with the sword on the head when he was in sajda by Ibn Muljam. So we also kind of commemorate that. We commemorate his relationship with Allah when he says, Mawla, ya Mawla. It's amazing that how we seek that qurbah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this dua, the munajat of Imam Ali alayhi salam, where he is pouring his heart out. Antal maliku anal mamluk.
I'll stop you there because there is one thing that I really like about the munajat of Imam Ali is the fact that every time you recite it, you cannot stop yourself but just cry. And it is said that crying softens the heart. So basically the 19th night makes you weep over the tragedy of Imam Ali. The 21st night makes you weep over the loss of Imam Ali. These two nights have softened your heart, and then comes the actual grand night. And that is when we as human beings, we as Muslims need to achieve maximum perfection to be able, to go there. So 19th and 21st can also be considered as a means of preparing yourselves for 23rd.
Laylatul Qadr, exactly.
Yeah.
It could be considered as preparation. Every night, I would urge viewers to take each and every night. The moment you come to the first night, you say, okay, my objective this Ramadan is on the night of Laylatul Qadr, the first night when we celebrate it, the 19th, I want to feel something. I want to close my eyes and I want to feel and breathe. And I want to breathe the spirituality. If I don't, I would have wasted 18 days of my fast. I want it, and how am I going to develop it? So his objective and target, everyone's objective and target should be on the 19th night, I must feel the difference of spirituality. And then on the 21st night, and then on the 23rd night. For if I pass the 23rd night, and I've now moved away from that, I'm coming to the 27th night, probably it is still Laylatul Qadr, but I have probably missed it. And if I have missed it this Ramadan, I don't know whether I'll have another Ramadan, under the month of Ramadan.
That again, it's a very common concept that every time we sit down to pray for Ramadan and to recite du'as and to do our amals, we are quite often told, you never know if this is your final Ramadan or whether you will be able. But again, at the same time, on the 19th and 21st, we pray for a long life. So how would you, with full respect towards the holy months and how to prepare for yourselves, and of course, we are told to ask for our supplications, for our desires to be fulfilled during this holy night. What would be your advice to everyone doing the amal, to everyone participating in these holy nights? What should they do after they've already, as you said, achieved that sense of feeling about that particular night, and then you have the forgiveness of your sins and everything. But then comes that supplication bit. And what would be your advice to the youths of today? What should be in their supplications?
You know that on the 15th of Shaban, on the Amal, they recite Yasin 3 times.
Right.
And one Yasin that we recite with the Niyyah is for long life.
Yeah.
One against calamities.
Right.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's one more that we recite.
I think it's for unfortunate,
for difficulties, etc. So now whatever we seek from Allah, for example, we are guided. قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. we should say our prayers, sacrifice our life and our data for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So clearly, we seek long life. We are seeking long life so that we can achieve greater spirituality, greater closeness to Allah. So when we say we want long life, it is for an opportunity to do even better so that we can get higher daraja of Jannah. We can get higher, because the highest position in Jannah is Rizwanullah, because that is the highest position. And it is narrated that when people are in Jannah, they will be yearning to go to that high elevated position.
Subhanallah.
And that will be their target. So in other words, they will not be without purpose, even in Jannah. And when they are taken to that position, which is the closest, the position to Allah, where is one Allah Akbar.
Yeah.
So that they'll be allowed to stay there for some time and then told go back.
Yeah.
So that you can feel the yearning to come back again.
Very true.
So you see, essentially we have to pray for others. Right. We have to pray for and that's why our du'as, when we recite the two main du'as, Ya Ali, Ya Allah Maghfir,
Yeah. The dua of asking for
others, that is very important, that we honestly recite it with our hearts and we follow it with our money.
Right.
We recite that all these people are to be fed, Allah feed them, make me
be the reason,
the means and the channel to feed them.
Very, very interesting point there. I would, and there is one thing that I have seen, that it's something so common in the month of Ramadan, where people suddenly become so generous. People are willing to give out as much as they can, to be able to provide to the less fortunate, to fund the programs at mosque and everything. Maybe Ramadan should have been throughout the year, that people would have been that. Or is this a lesson for us to learn, that maybe, as you said, Ramadan is considered as a month to change yourself? Maybe that could be the catalyst, the reason why people could change.
If you have a process of transformation that takes place in the month of Ramadan, where you have such a huge degree of spirituality that people feel elevated, they feel different, they feel they're closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the challenge is to preserve it. Because
that's what I wanted to come to. I want you to discuss this bit. We discussed pre-Ramadan, we discussed Ramadan itself. But the fact is, and the most important thing is the post-Ramadan. Because there is no use of preparing yourself, achieving maximum, perfection, salvation throughout that holy month. And then what? Yeah. And then comes the Eid, where we tend to forget everything goes out of the window. And then what happens? Yeah. How do you expect people to live up to the same expectation in Ramadan? I mean, on a personal level, it is very difficult. You don't expect someone to be as spiritual as they are during the holy month of Ramadan, and for them to be it on a daily basis.
So this is interesting, because then, in a sense, it's like the spirituality that we have developed in the month of Ramadan. In the refrigerator, it was like ice.
Exactly.
And then the moment we took it out of the ice box,
when it's melted,
it's starting to melt.
Yeah.
And it's going. In other words, the rest of the months are not conducive for the continuation, because of something that is happening in our lives.
But not only after Ramadan. Being a regular visitor at mosque, you look at it at Ramadan, your first few nights have a nice the audience is building up, and then when the big nights come in, the audience is massive. There's a massive turnout at mosque. After 23rd night, it all goes downhill. So it's not only after Ramadan, it is the final few nights of Ramadan, where we also recite where we had the holy personalities crying, lamenting that why is this holy month leaving us? And then on the other hand, we have us who neglect the holy month. Because we have our final 5 minutes of the show, I will ask you to give your suggestions on how we could preserve the spirituality that is obtained throughout the holy month.
Yeah.
Not only stop it at Laylatul Qadr, but continue throughout the year, so that when the next Ramadan comes in, you have achieved a higher level of spirituality compared to the one that you had previously?
If you compare our spiritual elevation to a launch of a rocket out of the orbit of the earth, when we have achieved this energy, the spiritual energy to launch off, you would expect us not to fall back. Right? We have to cross the threshold of gravity and free ourselves from gravity so that we don't fall back. But it's very important what you say, that even in the month of Ramadan, the Holy Month of Ramadan, after the 27th night, people's view about the last nights is so very different. Whereas we have this dua wida, where we are lamenting the passing away of our friend, the month of Ramadan, our Savior, the month of Ramadan. And in the dua wida, we are reminding ourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us so much. He gives us in abundance. He tolerates us. He forgives us. He's kind and loving to us. You know, He delays punishing us. He gives us ample opportunity to repent. And Allah, you have given me this opportunity to repent. I really don't know. The only way to remind yourself is that honestly one should think, is tomorrow going to be my last day or not? That constant reminder. Secondly, we should feel that we want to achieve something in our lives. And we must have targets in our lives. It can't be simply that we let ourselves go and fall back onto the earth, losing the gravity. You know, having been launched off, it is like abortive launch, if that were to happen. So we don't want an aborted launch. We want a launch that is successful, and we want to travel out of gravity into the stars. So we must get there and must stay there. We can do that by reminding ourselves that, and this is what our fourth Imam used to in his Saif Sajadiyah. That look, I must keep on rising, otherwise I'll fall from your grace. I cannot stay still. I cannot be satisfied that I've achieved it. I must feel the uncertainty that I'll fall. And therefore, you keep on wanting to rise higher and higher, and keep on praying to Allah that, look, I feel fearful that I will fall from grace, even if I've achieved this much. You've got to keep on reminding yourself. You've got to keep on practicing the fast. The month after the month of Ramadan must be similar to the fasts, and thereafter. And then we are helped by Hajj, Zil Hajj, and we are helped by Muharram. Because for Muharram, we have an emotional, kind of uploading into our own hearts of the love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, which gives us such strength, such enormous strength. So, we have throughout the year landmarks.
Thank you very much, Haji. I'm sorry I have to cut you short because we are just 20 seconds away from ending the show. Dear viewers, thank you very much for your comments that have come in any other way. Haji, thank you very much for shedding some light into this holy month. Inshallah, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the efforts, to enable us to prepare ourselves for this holy month in the right way, in the best way, in order to make sure we do make the most out of it. And from all of us here at Ahlulbayt TV, we wish you a Ramadan Mubarak in advance. And thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ahlulbayt TV, the holy household for every household.